Hello everybody, so today we're going to do a 1UZ-FE VVT-i from an LS400, that's 98 to 2000, going into an IS200 using a J160 gearbox. So let's get into it. Right, so this is a LS400 1UZ VVT-i, that means 98 to 2000 in the European models. And this is going into an IS200. It's plug and play, and it's using the J160 gearbox. So this harness is an adapted harness, so that means we've taken the original harness, we've cleaned it out, recovered everything, replaced everything that was damaged or broken, including anything from terminals to broken wires, and we've added in all of the wires that are required for this particular conversion. And we've added all the bits in here to make everything plug and play. All right. First thing I'm going to say is it is Storm Eunice. If you do hear a lot of wind outside, I do apologize, but it's a pretty windy day. So starting from the ECU side, we're going to go through the layout of the entire harness, and that'll show the customer exactly where to plug everything in. So starting from the ECU box, we've got the ECU itself, which has got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plugs in there, which go straight in. We've then got the ATEMU device, so that's the automatic transmission emulator. That's all wired in directly to the ECU, and that takes care of the missing signals from the automatic gearbox. We've then got the MPX translator, so this translates the MPX from the 1UZ VVT-i over to the IS200, so all the gauges and everything work correctly. And then we've got the patch section, so this plugs into the 2 ECU plugs that are left behind in the IS200. So this means you don't have to cut anything and join anything, you just plug it straight in there. And then on the body plug side, we've got the gray, and we've got the black, and we've got the blue. So those 3 plugs will just plug straight in there. So as you can see, nothing needs to be cut. You just drop this in, plug the ECU, those 2 plugs, and away you go. We've also fitted an IS200 grommet. So that means that's going to slide straight into there, and you can put the lid directly on the box as well. Coming along here, you'll see the harness is going to run along here around the back, and obviously the engine will be nice and low in the car itself. And then it comes to this black piece of plastic, and that runs across the whole back of the engine over here. You've got mounting points here, one inside there, and then one in the corner over there where you can see we've actually bolted it down. Now bear in mind this is the LS430 engine, so these mounting points over here are not actually on this water bridge. They are on the 1UZ VVT-i water bridge where that bolts down over there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to first go over the front section over there, running down the front to the crank sensor there, and then we'll come back, we'll go along here, going through what comes out the back over there, and then making our way around the other side over there. So starting here, you're going to end up first going into this black piece of plastic, and that is bolted in these 2 bolts over here. Coming out this slot over here, that is your injector 7 plug. And then as you come further down here, we've got another opening. Now out of here, you've got a long wire, and that goes to coil 7. You've got a short wire, and that goes to coil 5. So you can't plug this one into this one, but you can plug that one into that one. So just remember that. And then coming out there, we've got injector 5 as well. So coil 5, injector 5, and then coil 7 comes out there. Coming further along, we've got this section over here, and then that is going to go to your cam sensor for the left bank. Then you are going to go to injector 3 and coil 3. So that's this section over here. Coming down here, a little breakout for your noise filter. That should be bolted onto the manifold here, and that'll just plug straight directly into there. I just don't have it fitted on this one because not really needed for testing purposes. Then coming down along here, we've got another breakout at the end of the fuel rail, and that's going to go to injector 1, coil 1, and oil control valve over here. All right. Then a little short section we're going to break out, and that's going to come along here, and it's going to go to the pedal position sensor. So remember, this is drive-by-wire, even though it's got a cable. This is not actually connected to there. There's loads of videos about this particular setup if you wanted more information on that. So that goes to there, and then it comes out and it goes to what is the TPS plug. The reason it's the TPS plug, and it looks weird for Toyota, is your TPS is actually over there, and you'll see the back of this plug goes down along there, and then it plugs into the TPS over there. So what they've done is they've just moved the connection from there to there, so it's easily to take off when you want to remove the actual throttle. Otherwise it'd be a pain to get down there and try and disconnect that. Then the harness runs underneath the throttle motor over there, breaks out over here and goes to the cam sensor over there. It then breaks out and goes to the drive-by-wire motor. So that's your drive-by-wire positive and negative, and your clutch positive and negative in there. And obviously you can see there's a drive-by-wire motor there. As it comes down, you'll see you can then have your clip, which clips in over there, and you've got your clip, which clips in over there to keep the harness out of the way. So obviously normally there'd be an aircon pump, so the belt would be running along here, so that just keeps that nice and neat out of the way. When you get to here, there's a split over here which breaks off into the 3 sections. So we've got aircon. Coming down here, we've got oil pressure switch, and then normally you go through this little hole over here, down through that cavity over there, and then that comes out and that goes to your crank sensor at the front over there. All right, so that covers everything on this side over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our way back to the piece of plastic at the back. And what I'm going to do is we're going to start off with this little section over here because there's a few bits and bobs popping out here. So firstly, we've got your gearbox harness. So that comes all the way down there, and you can see there's the reverse plug for the J160. A little bit further there, and there's these 3-wire speed sensor for the back of the J160. Then coming out here as well, we've got the earth for the back of the cylinder head. Now the 1UZ, it uses an M8 hole, which is actually this one down here. You'll see it's just slightly down there. That's an M8, that's an M6. I think in this case, this actual ring was cut off or missing, so we've replaced it with our own ring. So in this case, this is why this is mounted to the M6 hole over here. But normally on a 1UZ VVT-i, it would mount to the bottom one over there. All right. Then also coming out the back here, you've got your Lambda sensor for the left bank. So that comes down along here, and you'll see it goes down into there, and then you can see the plug just down there at the bottom. So remember, there is a metal shield which bolts on here. So please make sure that is fitted in there. Otherwise, this isn't going to last very long without that heat protection over there, and your connector and everything will become brittle very, very quickly. So again, please make sure that it's fitted over there. And then that's all that's coming out of that section over there. So we'll move up along here, and you've got your plug that goes to the sub harness, which goes underneath the inlet manifold over there, along with the main power for the starter. So in this case, you see we remade it because the customer didn't actually have access to this particular harness. It was missing on the motor they bought. So we made it all brand new for them, and that goes to the 2 NOx sensors and the starter plug, which you'll see photos of at the very end. We've got photos of what it looks like underneath over there. And then lastly, you've got your main power cable. This is not part of the engine harness, but it comes out over here, and you can see it goes straight along there, and it bolts to the positive of the battery, which in a standardized 200 on a right-hand drive model is over here. Right, so now that that's done, we're just going to make our way around to the other side so we can carry on. So if you follow the plastic piece along there, you'll see there's a little breakout down here, and then that goes off to the other earth, which bolts to the cylinder head here. So again, this one is original. I can see the original ring, so that one would normally be down there. Because it's a 3UZ engine, we've got the M6 hole, so we've just bolted it to there. Doesn't actually make a difference. You can use either one, but it is designed to go to the one slightly further down and use the M8 hole. Coming down to the end of the plastic now, and what you're going to have is your breakout for your injector 8 and your coil 8. Then it's going to come a little bit forward, and you're going to have your second breakout here, which is going to go to your ACIS solenoid plug, which again goes underneath the intake and goes to the vacuum solenoid over there. You're also going to break out for injector 6 and coil 6. It's then going to come a little bit forward, and you have another breakout here, which then goes to your cam sensor for the right bank. Then it's going to go to injector 4 and coil 4. And it's going to move along here. So this can actually be attached with P-clamps on the top over here like that. But as you come down over here, you're then going to end up on injector 2. It's also going to break off to go to the coolant temperature sensor over there, and your oil control valve on this side of the bank, and obviously your coil 1. Once that's broken out, it comes a little bit further down, and then you'll see it breaks out and it goes to your mass airflow sensor. Okay, so in this particular case now, we are using a 3UZ mass airflow sensor. So we're just using a wired interface because it's different wiring for that than it is for the 1UZ VVT-i harness. Okay, so it's going to carry on down here, and then you're going to have another little breakout section over here. So this is where we added stuff in. So you'll see it's all new wiring there, and that goes to your alternator plug at the back of the alternator over there. It then goes to your oil level sensor, which is going to plug into the front of the sump over here. Remember, the 1UZ VVT-i has a front sump. This is like a mid/rear sump that comes from the LS400. And then coming down here, and it's going to go to your other Lambda sensor for that bank over there. Right, so that is the entire layout. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to quickly come back, and then we're going to do the testing, which involves starting the engine and going through all the things that we need to make sure work with this particular swap. So we're going to come back in a second. See you now. Right, so now we're going to move on to the testing side of it, and we're going to carry out quite a few tests because there's a lot of things that do work in the vehicle with this particular swap. So first of all, we're going to test the immobilizer. So that means we've removed the immobilizer in the ECU. We do wire up the security light so it looks like the immobilizer is working, and this is how you will get it in your vehicle. It has actually been removed though, so any key can plug in and it will work from there. Next thing, we're going to look at the ambient temperature sensor. So that's this little sensor, little gauge here inside the vehicle, and that tells you what the outside temperature is. In this model, it is a sensed value, so that will be accurate and it will actually measure the outside temperature. Just bearing in mind, your ambient temperature sensor is the black sensor that's hooked under the bar that normally runs across the front here like that. So you need to make sure that that is hooked up and working, otherwise that won't work. Then we're going to look at the lights on the dash. So as an example, we've got charge light, oil light, and check engine light as well. So as soon as you put the ignition on, we'll make sure all of those are working and they light up. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go around and we're going to do the reverse plug. So we're going to bridge the reverse plug exactly like would happen with the gearbox. And we're going to listen for the beep on the cluster to make sure that's working 100%. We'll then feed a signal to the Speedo. So that will then tell us that the Speedo is working, and we use the plug so we know from the plug all the way to the cluster, everything is correct as it should be. Then what we'll do is we move over to the OBD machine. So what we're testing here is to make sure that it is actually connecting. And as you can see, we are just plugged in directly to the OBD2 port down here. So that's the one that would be under your dash that you would normally use to read the codes on your IS200 as completely standard. So nothing is altered there. You just plug a diagnostic machine directly in and it will work. Once we're in the machine, what we're going to do is we're going to test the fuel pump relay. So in this case, the fuel pump is controlled by the ECU. I'll put a little link up here to tell you about how the Toyota fuel systems work, and I'll explain a little bit of detail when we actually get around to doing it. And then we're also going to test the AC clutch. So again, from the system here, I can then actually test the magnetic clutch relay to make sure it is activating from the ECU exactly like it should. Remember, with the AC system, pressure switches and everything are being fed to the 1UZ ECU. So if you don't have any pressure, you still have that safety built in that the AC will not come on. And obviously we are translating the AC signal from the car's MPX over to the 1UZ. So the 1UZ is receiving the AC request signal when you press that button. Otherwise, everything else works exactly as it would in an LS400. All right. Once we've gone through all of those tests without the engine running, we're going to fire her up. Then we're going to be looking at the starter circuit. Relatively straightforward. I'm going to put the key in the ignition. We're going to start it. If it works, we know the complete starter circuit to the starter relay is 100% correct. Then we'll look at the tacho. So we want to make sure we get in the tacho signal. More importantly, we want to make sure we got it correct, because the MPX device is not only translating the MPX, it's also converting a 4-cylinder signal, which is what the 1UZ VVT-i and the 3UZ VVT-i give out of the ECU, and converting it to a 6-cylinder signal, which is what this cluster is looking for. Then what we're going to do is look at the coolant temp. So I have run the engine up a bit. It should be about 50 degrees, so we should get some reading on there. If not, we'll come back after we do the other tests and we'll make sure that works. Then we're going to look at the ACIS system, or acoustic control induction system. What that means is this little valve on the back over here, that is then going to, as soon as the engine starts up, so we're just going to make sure that that's moved from the upright position to the down position. And what I'll do is, if you want more details about the ACIS system, put a little link in the top there. You can then go and watch that video, and I go into great detail about exactly how it works, what it looks like inside there, in case you're wondering. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the OBD2 machine, and then we're going to test both oil control valves. So that's the oil control valves at front that control the VVT-i. With my machine, I can put them in a test mode, so it retards the cam, retards and advances the cam, so it sounds like a very lumpy can engine. So hopefully you'll hear that when I do that, and we'll do bank 1 and we'll do bank 2. All right. Then what we'll do is we'll rev it up. So obviously we want to make sure, because it is drive-by-wire, that as moment I actually pull this accelerator here, that the throttle is actually opening, so we know that is working correctly. You'll probably hear it buzzing as soon as I turn the key on as well anyway. Okay. Then lastly, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the codes, because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 codes that stay in the system. They don't affect performance. They do not cause a check engine light. As you will tell, when it's running, we'll have no check engine light popping up. But they are there, so I just want to make you aware of the ones that are there, so when you are doing diagnostics, you know that they don't mean anything and you're looking for codes other than those. Okay, I'll also show you how to read the codes without a diagnostic machine, so you can do that as well, and we'll do that as part of the last section over there. So as it's plug and play, I've got my key here for the half cut. I'm going to put it in over there. So what we're basically looking for now is you'll see that the security light is flashing over there, and as I insert the key, there you go. So remember, with these immobilizer systems, they look for the key the second you insert the key. If the keen-eared on you would have actually heard that the relay over there is flicking on. That's what's powering up the ignition barrel antenna, which is that thing over there, and it's reading the key. So you don't actually have to turn the ignition on for the immobilizer to be deactivated. As soon as this goes in, it's got a key switch in there, which goes to the ECU, which tells it to turn on the relay, which supplies power to that, which then reads the key. All right? So anybody with IS200s or this sort of same model era car, that's how they work. All right, so what we're going to do now, we're going to put the ignition switch on. You'll see we've got the check engine light over there on, so we know the ECU is on. But what we're going to do first of all is we're going to come over to our ambient temp sensor over there, and you'll see it says 16 degrees. All right, so that's all working exactly as we should. Then what we're going to do is we're going to check over there. You can see we've got our oil light and our battery light over there, so that's working 100%. So what we're going to do now is we are going to go over to the other side. I'm just going to turn that around so long. Now we're going to test the reverse and the speedo. So if I move over here, again, I'm just simply bridging the reverse switch, and as I do that, let me just get the wire in there. There you go. You see that's beeping away there, so we know the reverse circuit is 100% correct, and we know straight from the plug, from the terminals all the way to inside the vehicle is fine. Now we're going to move over to the Speedo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my device that we normally use for converting tacho and speed signals for conversions. It's got a test feature, so basically it'll output a signal. We use it to help customers find their tacho signal if they want. You can basically put it into test mode and just probe wires the back of your cluster and see when the tacho needle moves. I'm going to do the same process, except this time I'm going directly from the plug all the way to the cluster itself. Now the reason I do this as well is this is a Hall effect style sensor, so it has a 12 volts, it has a ground, and it has a signal wire. So what I'm doing is I'm using the 12 volts and the ground to power the device. That tells me that the 12 volts and ground in the plug are working spot on, and then what I'll do is I'll feed the signal down and make sure that the actually getting a signal through the dash. So just bear with me a second while I put it into test mode. Right, okay. You can see the flashing's changed there, it's just flashing. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is I'm literally going to supply the signal. So you see here, I'm just going to put the yellow wire onto the third terminal of the plug there. And as soon as I do, you're going to see that we've got Speedo working. And we go off, and we go on, and that's all working as it should do. So I know that that is 100%. Let's just get rid of that over there. Right, so let's move back over to our sheet to go on to the next one. All right, so we're going to go to the OBD2 machine over here. So these take forever to load up, so I've already loaded it up. But what I'll do now is I'm just going to go into function. I'm going to go into system select, and you'll see here it's picking up LS400. All right. So that's going to be fine. So what I want to do now is we know that it communicates, and if we go and we look at the data list, it'll give us a whole bunch of data from the ECU. So you can see we've got coolant temp, we've got intake air temp, and we've got throttle position over there. So we know we're getting live data through from there. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to test the fuel pump. So I'm going to go into active test. All right, so you see fuel pump, relay, fuel pump. If you watch the video about how the fuel pumps work, you'll know exactly why we have those two setups. But in our case, we want the fuel pump to activate. And all I'm going to do is press this arrow, and if you listen out, you can hear the relay clicking over there. So I'll do it again. Fantastic. And if you can hear, which I'm not sure, you can actually hear the fuel pump running in the bucket over there. Right, so that is the fuel pump test done. So now we're going to move over to the AC clutch. So again, the AC magnetic clutch relay, I'm just going to go into there. And then the AC magnetic clutch relay is actually in that little fuse box next to the ECU box over there. So again, I'm just gonna have to lean over, and then what we'll do is we should hear that relay clicking. So first thing I'm gonna do is go in there, and let me keep quiet. I'm just gonna move over and try and get the camera as close as I can. Okay, so happy with that. So the AC magnetic clutch relay is activating from the 1UZ ECU when I do the command via the active tests on the OBD2 machine. Right, so now that that is done, what we're going to move on to next is we're actually going to be starting the engine up. So I'm going to do a quick recap because we've gone through all the other stuff over there. What we're basically looking for is, starting off, we want to make sure the starter circuit works. Well, that's easy enough because we're going to know that the engine started up from the key, so we know that works 100%. We'll come back to the cluster. Then what we'll do is we'll look at the tacho, make sure that that's working. We'll look at the coolant temp sensor, see if there's enough temperature, but I think it's cooled under 45 degrees. We might have to wait a little bit, and we'll check at the end. We'll then go over to the ACIS valve over here to make sure that that has actually gone down. We're then going to test the oil control valves, and we're going to do that via the OBD2 machine. Then we're going to test the drive-by-wire by just literally revving up the engine. Then I'm going to go around and I'm going to unplug each injector one by one, and we're going to make sure we get a misfire on each and every cylinder as I go around. That means that every single cylinder is firing exactly as it should do. And then what we'll do is we'll go through the codes that you will see on every particular setup and what to look for, and I'll tell you how to read the codes without having a OBD2 machine as well. All right. So, plug and play. I'm just going to go to the key here, and in 3, 2, 1. So slightly off the needle, but we'll come back in a minute and we'll look at that over there. The ACIS valve, that's gone down, so we're happy with that. Now we're going to test the oil control valves. So we do bank one first. Now you can see we've got the coolant temp coming up over there. All I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kill it. I'm going to put it back on again. Alright, so what we're going to do next is we're going to go into DTC, or Diagnostic Trouble Codes. Okay. Oh, hang on. The math must have had a wire fall out there, so I'm just going to wait for them to all come back. There you go. Right. So these are the 5 codes that you should have. The 6th one was intake air temperature, but you've got bank 1, sensor 2, obviously because they're missing. Bank 2, sensor 2, again, because that's missing, but doesn't cause a check engine light or a limp mode. Then we've got shift solenoid, SLU, SLT, and SLN. Now, we don't install the resistors on this one because two reasons. One, they don't affect performance, and two, it doesn't actually cause the check engine light to come on the 1UZ VVT-i. Different for like the IS300 and the GS300. We do have to fit the resistors in those cases, although the IS300 we can remap the ECU now. We're just working to get all of the ECUs covered. But yeah, if we remap it, it's obviously all gone and the codes are not there. But on a GS300, those codes like SLU, SLT, and SLN will cause a check engine light. 1UZ VVT-i will not cause a check engine light. Now I must stress, this applies so far to Japanese models and European models. This does not apply to US models. Those are different. Those codes will cause check engine light. So US model harnesses, they would have a resistors in for the SLU, SLT, and SLN. So again, not every 1UZ VVT-i is the same. It depends on where it comes from and what facilities and options they had on there in that particular country. All right, so now you can see the codes all down here, and that's how you would check it with a diagnostic machine. So what you'd be looking for is a code other than that. So intake air temperature, mass airflow sensor, coolant temp sensor, etc., etc. Now there is a way to read the codes that doesn't involve an actual diagnostic machine. It just involves a paperclip, okay? So on the IS200, you've got a few options. Now that's going to depend on the year of your IS200. Now as in America, they had a differentiation between pre-2001 and 2001 and afterwards. Now a nice easy way to tell if your IS200 was a pre-2001, you have a little diagnostic box here at the front. These did not come on the 2001 to 2005 models. So nice, quick, easy way to tell what years yours is. Although the registration plate with the year on is also another good way. But easy way to tell there. So in this particular setup here, you'll see that there are very few pins because obviously there's an OBD2 plug in the bay. So this is just basically like a legacy thing left over. But it does allow you to bridge E1, which is a ground, and TC, which will then cause the check engine light to flash, and then you can read the codes like that. Now then, both models, so 98 all the way to 2005, all had an OBD2 port in the actual car itself. Now this has the same functionality as the one, oh apologies, a lot of fuel in the air here. So there is the same functionality with this one as there is with the diagnostic port in the front. In this case, you're bridging pin 4 or 5, which are both grounds, and pin 13. So 13 is TC, 4 and 5 are grounds. So you bridge those together and you will get a flashing check engine light. So what I'm going to do now quickly is I'm going to go bridge that terminal with the diagnostic port over there. And when I do so, you're going to see that the check engine light is going to start flashing away. So let me just get a wire ready over here. Okay, if you're paying close attention, you'll see that this little terminal over here, which is the only one in the top row, that little section over there, that is E1. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. I don't think it's going to focus on that. That's E1. And then down here, you've got one terminal, one terminal, one terminal. The middle one is TC. So as I do that, you're going to see the check engine light goes off. And then we've got it starting to flash. So you see it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 27. That's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. That's 29. I'm not going to go through all of them, but yeah. That is a really nice, easy way to do diagnostics on these particular engines. So the 1UZ VVT-i and the non-VVT-i, not the 3UZ though. But you can also do exactly the same thing from here. You can bridge 4 and 13 or 5 and 13, and that will then give you the same setup, which will throw it into diagnostic mode, and then you can read the codes via the check engine light. Now, that doesn't only allow you to read the codes. What it does also do is it locks the timing at 10 degrees. So I do have a video, I'll put a link in the top here about how to check your timing without removing all the covers. So basically all it is you've got your 0, 5, 10 and 15 degree timing marks there. You'll have a mark on your crank pulley. If you bridge those two terminals, you put it into diagnostic mode and then it'll lock the timing at 10 degrees. You then take a timing light onto cylinder 1, bring it around here and you can check your timing. So your timing should be dead on 10 degrees when those two pins are bridged either in the diagnostic port there or in the OBD2 port inside the vehicle. So I never tell people, and I always say to them, do not leave that wire in there thinking, oh, it's fine, it'll just flash the check engine light, who cares? No, you're going to lock the timing at 10 degrees, and if you do that, you're going to have no power at all. And the other thing that's not going to that's going to lose a lot of power is the ACIS valve over there. So I would highly recommend, because you've got to pull the intake off anyway to obviously fit the knock and starter sensor plugs and everything underneath there. While you're under there, the little valve, which is underneath the bottom attached to the big black canister, feed that 12 volts in a ground in the correct order, and that should click. If that doesn't click, all right, it is polarity sensitive, so if you put it one way and it doesn't click, try it the other way. If it doesn't click, then you know it's broken. Replace it then, because obviously you don't want to have to pull the entire intake off again to have to fix that. So do test that when you're fitting everything to make sure that works. This not working loses you a lot of low down torque, and I don't mean a little, I mean a lot. All right, so just make sure that works as well, and make sure you don't leave that wire connected to short out to do the diagnostic codes, because you'll lock the timing at 10 degrees and you'll lose a lot of power there as well. All right, so that is all done. Everything is working exactly as we wanted to. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get this harness off the engine, get it in a box, and get it over to the customer so he can get his car running. And everybody else, thanks for watching. If you stuck this far, we'll put some photos up now of what it looks like on the bench when it was all complete. And if you need anything, you can put a comment down below. The fastest response is to get us on our Facebook page. We have a dedicated person now who's answering messages there. So if you get a message to them, they'll get it all sorted out and give me a list of quotes that need to go out. All right, but thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.